Hey, Richard.
Yeah, dude, what's up?
Ready to go back to NDC London?
You bet. And they're in a new location this year at the QE2 Conference Center in Westminster.
You mean across the street from Westminster Abbey?
That's the one. And the speaker lineup this year is awesome. Scott Guthrie, Scott Hanselman.
The greater and the lesser Scott.
If you say so, buddy. The conference runs January 15th to 19th, so it's time to get your registration done.
Go to ndc-london.com to sign up today.
And we'll see you there.
Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
And here in New London, Connecticut, Richard, last night we had our annual PWOP holiday dinner.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was nice. And wish you were here, but, you know, it's a lot to ask of you to come out here just for dinner.
Well, I've made it a couple of years here and there.
You have when situations have presented themselves.
It's always a timing thing. I actually spent the weekend at a podcasting conference, which was interesting.
That's cool.
The theme of the conference was, you can't make money on podcasts. And I'm like, not true.
Yeah.
But I think we're an anomaly.
Yeah, we may be. It's just really great that our sponsors continue to support us and our people continue to listen to us. And I feel lucky every day.
Yep. Well, definitely go to a podcasting conference. You'll feel very lucky.
Yeah. And this is a particularly awesome show, isn't it? Because
this is special.
Yeah, because this is when we give away the big kahuna.
Yes, the prize. It is time for the prize.
It's time for the prize.
We get to be Nigerian princes at last.
I also realized that I misspoke on a previous show that I told people they had until the 14th to get their registrations in the fan club in. And certain circumstances came and went, and we were not able to wait that long. So,
right.
Sorry about that. It was not intentional for me to mislead you. And better luck next year if, in fact, you did not win.
All right.
So, let's get on with it. Better Know a Framework. Roll 'em.
All right, dude, what do you got?
This is great. This was posted by somebody in our Slack forum on AppVNext, one of the guys down there. And this is a daily WTF blog post, and it's called Calculated by Remy Porter.
Okay.
And he says, a long time ago in a galaxy right here, we ran a contest. The original OMG WTF contest was a challenge to build the worst calculator you possibly could. We got some real treats like the Universal Calculator, which, instead of being a calculator, was a framework for defining your own calculator.
Awesome.
Or Rube Goldberg's calculator, which eschewed cryptic values like 0.109375 and instead output 7/64 using inline assembly for performance. Or the champion of the contest, the Buggy 4-function calculator, which is a perfect simulation of a rotting, aging code base. The joke, of course, is that building a usable calculator app is easy. Why, it's so easy that we've challenged our readers to come up with ways to make it hard, to find creative ways to fail at handling this simple task, to misinterpret and violate basic principles of how calculators should work. Well, I bring this up because just a few days ago, as of this writing, this was December 6th, iOS 11.2 left beta and went public. And finally, they fixed the calculator, which had been broken since iOS 11 launched. How broken? Let's try 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6, shall we? And when you play the video, the answer turns out to be 75.
That's not right.
Yeah. So he says, for those who can't or don't wish to watch the video, according to the calculator, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 is 75. I entered the values in quickly, but not super speed. The underlying cause, near as anyone's been able to tell, is a combination of input lag and display updates. So rapidly typing 1 plus 2 plus 3 loses one of the pluses and becomes 1 plus 23.
Oh, my goodness.
Oops.
This shipped?
Yes.
This shipped?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That is a daily WTF.
Isn't it?
This shipped on the latest version of iOS. That is extraordinary.
Well, they finally fixed it on the latest version, but it had two, minor revisions before they fixed it.
Wow. That is awesome.
Yep. There you go.
Just not making something up. This is actually just, no, this was out in the wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
By a company with a couple of dollars.
Yep. A couple of dollars. So I thought it was funny. I thought I'd share it with our listeners. Enjoy that. Who's talking to us today, Richard Campbell?
Grabbed a comment on show 1500. I don't even know this, but we've done 1500 of these things.
Apparently we have.
And we have. And we did the history of .NET, which I've talked about a bit before.
It was great.
Seemed fairly well received, don't you think?
I thought it was awesome. Yeah.
One of the most responded to tweets I think I've ever put out. And I got a ton of great comments about it. I think folks are very interested. And this particular comment comes from Keith Williams, who says, as a trained historian who only found an interest in development after university, I love this show. The history of software is underappreciated, but is becoming ever more important as software becomes more important to our lives.
Yes.
In 100 years, small and seemingly inconsequential design decisions taken when developing the global platforms of the future may have huge real-world implications, and the people and stories behind that will be fascinated to future historians as in the last industrial revolution.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And he wraps up to say one of the best things you can do when moving to a new product is to learn the history. Knowing about, say, the spat between the offshore team and the then product owner 10 years ago can help to explain baffling technical decisions in code and guide you to an understanding of what the system is meant to do and why it is the way it is now.
Yeah, not to mention any cultural divides or rifts or anomalies or weirdnesses that exist in your company. It's good to figure out the history.
Well, I can't tell you how many times as a consultant I've come in to evaluate a company and figured out that there was like one person who wrote a piece of magic that essentially the company is built on, and they're long gone and
nobody wants to touch it, right?
Nobody touches it. Exactly. It's like the voodoo is over there.
Don't go near it.
Don't go near the voodoo. Leave the voodoo alone.
We'll just put adapters on top of it and
yes,
we'll figure
that's
out.
it. We just keep decorating that one amazing chunk of code. That's a whole business.
Yeah. I worked for a couple companies like that.
Yeah, it happens. So Keith, thank you so much for your comment. A .NET Rocks mug, it's on its way to you. And if you'd like a .NET Rocks mug, write a comment on the website at .NETRocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a mug.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. He's at Rich Campbell. I'm at Carl Franklin. Send us a tweet. We throw them in the voodoo file.
They get voodooed.
I do remember working for a company called Voyatra, which is now Turtle Beach. And they had a DOS sequencer called Sequencer Plus for MIDI, right? And this was in the 80s when musician and computer should not have been said in the same sentence.
No.
Yeah. But I do remember the note editor, the piano roll editor, was that piece of voodoo that nobody, even the best developers, wouldn't touch. They had outsourced it, and they were like, nope, that's gold right there. It's voodoo.
It's magic in there. Don't touch it. You break everything.
You speak truth, Mr. Campbell.
Well, yeah. And, my interviews continue for the history of .NET. I'm still really trying to figure out what my overall thesis is. Like it is an experience to learn more. And one of the interesting concepts just came up recently is really this discussion about pragmatism versus idealism in software design. Because you see that discussion over and over again.
You do.
In the evolution of .NET.
Yeah.
So, I am still being surprised by the story with as much work as I've already put into it. We're ways to go.
Well, everybody else said it. I'll say it too. I can't wait for the book, the video, whatever else you're going to come out with. Can't wait to see it.
I'm excited.
And that brings us to our guest. Jay Janarthanan has been developing software for almost 25 years as of this recording. For the last 4, he's been concentrating on Salesforce and continuing to work as a C# developer. And that's been since about 2000. Before that, he was a Java programmer, started his Java career at Sun when Java was not even a public product. Jay began his programming career as a Smalltalk programmer, a language he loves and still uses.
Oh, my.
Oh, we got to talk about that. Jay spent the last 2 years at General Motors as their lead Salesforce developer on one of the largest Salesforce projects in the world. Last month, Jay left GM to work full-time on ApexSharp. ApexSharp.com, an open source C# to Apex and back to C# code converter. The primary focus of this project is to bring the productivity gains of C# and Visual Studio to the Salesforce development arena. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks for having me. It's been a dream for the past 6 years to be on the show.
Oh, no kidding.
And,
That's great. I believe you have a mug too, don't you?
Yes. I actually posted a comment on the topic we talked about, where to buy a system that can hold 26 terabytes of RAM.
You have such a system, do you?
Yes, I don't have it, but I think I found one and posted on the show notes. I forgot the model, but HP makes a Intel system that has something like 385 DIMM slots.
And you can get that at dreamon.com. Jay, we're not up on Salesforce probably as much as we should be, or you think we are. And by us, I mean Richard and I, and certainly a whole bunch of our listeners. So can you tell us what Apex is?
So Apex is the programming language for Salesforce. So just like C# or VB, Apex is the programming language that you use to develop applications for Salesforce.
I see.
It's very similar to T-SQL.
Okay.
To T-SQL. So it's sort of functional querying type language?
Set-based?
It's basically has, it's pretty much a full-blown programming language, but it doesn't have the advanced features like generics or, Lambda, things like that. But it's primarily designed as a programming language to manipulate data. Yeah. It has its own version of SQL. They call it SOQL. And you embed the SOQL calls into Apex. And, the code runs on Salesforce.
Is the architecture similar to SQL in that it sort of runs right at the server, right where the data is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you develop an application in Apex, you can't actually run it on your local PC. You have to upload the code to Salesforce. And when you upload, the code gets compiled in Salesforce, and then, it runs on Salesforce. So, remember the old days when not everyone can have your own SQL server. So we all uploaded our stored procs to the primary SQL server, and, it's compiled and it ran there.
So I could see where a C# to Apex converter might be handy. You can actually develop stuff locally and then convert it, run it up on your server, and then bring it back, right?
Absolutely. So, Salesforce, I don't think they never thought that people are going to write an extensive amount of Apex code.
Yeah.
And, now they are spending time and money on making the language more robust, but it doesn't, because the fact that you can't run it locally, there is no debugger support. You can't debug the code. You basically putting, like console write line all over to find out what the code is doing. And also the compile time, it is based on how busy the Salesforce servers you are working on. So it can take anywhere from few seconds to, 30 seconds to have the code compiled in Salesforce. And as developers start writing more and more large scale applications in Salesforce, these are becoming a bottleneck. And tooling support, another biggest issue is the tooling support. Visual Studio is probably the best IDE out there. I've been using it for 15 years now, and you'll never find something like that in the Salesforce land. So the whole idea behind writing code in C# and converting to Apex came out of the same idea like TypeScript, right? I got the idea of TypeScript. So you write the code in C#, you take advantage of local development. If you have like I have, a 4 gigahertz machine, the whole thing compiles in real time. You get to debug the code in your local machine, put breakpoints, things like that. And Visual Studio is, thank God I have an enterprise edition license, and it's has all kinds of bells and whistles that makes development a lot easier, faster, and productive.
What I'm seeing that's really interesting here, and I'm looking at developer.salesforce.com and the sort of Apex trigger example, the first one I see there, looks so much like C#. And I was expecting something that looked more like T-SQL, but it kind of looks like C#.
Absolutely. I think, the language looks like it's a mix of C# and Java. That's what the language structure is. But I think the reference to T-SQL is how it's run, right? You don't run it locally, you don't develop it locally until you upload to the server. You would not even know if the code will compile or not.
Right. So the compiler lives on the server. So
absolutely,
you're not going to know anything to push to that. I mean, do we need to jump back a notch here and go, why are we writing code in a CRM exactly?
Good point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple of things, right? First, this confusion whenever we talk about Salesforce, the immediate question is, isn't that the CRM platform? Okay. Now, Salesforce started as a CRM company, and CRM is still one of their largest revenue source. But what they did is they developed their CRM software on top of a platform they developed, right? And about 5-6 years ago, they released that platform to others and said, hey, the same way we built our CRM software, you can build, your own application and we will run it for you. And that's how the whole platform thing came along. And now Salesforce is what they call a platform as a service provider, right? I mean, they provide a platform. Now, on top of it, Salesforce has a CRM, then, field services. They have a huge e-commerce engine. So they have their own apps. And then on AppExchange, which is their version of App Store, there are about 5,000 people, 5,000 partners having their own apps, accounting, ERP, think about anything.
I sort of see an analogy, maybe not quite exactly, but sort of in terms of scopes to SharePoint. You have the stuff that's turnkey, that's off the shelf that, power business people can use. And then, or maybe Power Apps, right? And then you also have the platform where you can develop your own custom applications and get in really deep.
Absolutely. And one of the nice things about this platform is, let's say you go and buy Salesforce CRM solution or, someone's accounting solution, you can actually extend it, add more columns to the table, extend it with more code. So you can always, it's a good starting point, if you're trying to solve a problem. Again, let's talk about CRM. You want to implement a CRM solution. You go and buy the CRM solution from Salesforce, but then you extend it by the means of clicks. What they call is the click no code.
Right.
And we can talk about that also.
Well, this might be as good a time as any, but before you get into click no code, let's just take a minute here to hear a word from our sponsor. Hey, Rockheads, this is Carl. Have you tried JetBrains Rider? It's a new cross-platform .NET IDE that's light yet powerful and comes from the makers of ReSharper, IntelliJ, IDEA, and WebStorm. You can write .NET code on Windows, Mac, or Linux. Rider has you covered. Rider helps you develop ASP.NET, .NET Core, .NET Framework, Xamarin, and Unity applications. Most languages used in .NET development are supported, from C#, VB.NET, F# and XAML, to ASP.NET Razor syntax, JavaScript, TypeScript, and all that other front-end stuff. It comes with navigation, thousands of code inspections, refactorings, unit testing, debugging, rich coding assistance, and more advanced IDE features, powered by proven technology from ReSharper and WebStorm. Download Rider now and take it for a 30-day trial at rider.dotnetrocks.com. That's rider.dotnetrocks.com. All right, and we're back. Carl Franklin, Richard Campbell, .NET Rocks. We're talking to Jay Janarthanan about Salesforce, Apex, and all that good stuff. And you were just about to mention a interesting technology.
So let's talk about the whole big thing nowadays in the industry is the so-called low-code platform. Seems like everyone hates developers, and the business guys wants to do, solve problems without the need for developers, right? But as Microsoft developers, the best example of a low-code platform is Microsoft Access. I've been using it for a long time, where you don't need to code. You basically did drag and drop, and people are running real businesses on Microsoft Access.
Well, they were. Maybe they still are. I don't know, but the problem you get into there is that the high-level things are great until they're not, and then they can't be extended if they're not designed correctly.
Absolutely, and then you used VB or whatever to extend it.
Yeah,
but Salesforce is one of the leaders, or I would say the biggest player in the so-called low-code platform that allows anyone to develop an application and to solve their business problem. Now, I kind of give this example. Salesforce is like a sharp shaving blade. You can take a nice shave, or you can slit your throat also.
Yeah.
And when you give that much power, where you can develop a database structure with all clicks, to someone who does not know much about database, next thing you know is your first and last name are in 20 different tables.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is actually a big consultancy or consulting business we call, cleaning up Salesforce. Like basically you go and clean up the mess that's done by non-developers, right?
I used to work for Access too.
Yeah, sure.
So, but the nice thing is, it allows, especially when it comes to so-called line of business apps, right? These are the apps that runs enterprise businesses, and they're boring. They doesn't look nice, but they contain so much business logic that a business person, knows that they want to, keep changing the logic, things like that, right? So this whole low-code platform is catching up, because the business guys, they want to, create the apps without going through this whole process of, having a business requirement, system analyst, a software architect, and a coding, everything, right?
You mean having a plan?
But it's in especially in enterprise, it's cost a lot of money to develop application.
Sure.
Like if you go into a Fortune 500, developing an application compared to startup, and I worked on both sides of the startups and enterprises. Same app, just for an example, let's say it takes 2 weeks at a startup for one person to do it, will take 6 months and 10 people to do it in a large enterprise, because you go through, so many steps and so many meetings and, to get it done, right? And this is where, kind of Salesforce comes into a play where, hey, you have your business owner define the screen or the objects, not objects there's another naming confusion. Salesforce calls tables as objects.
Tables as objects?
Yeah, they call, so thank God they call the record a record, but tables are called an object.
Okay. So there's no, anybody who wants to jump into ApexSharp, there's not going to be any confusion or anything there.
So you have to get used to the naming, but traditionally, a business person can go and create the table structure, create the reports, and there's a workflow engine. Again, it's a drag and drop, and they can say, hey, when this data gets saved, route this data to this table. And top of that, you can write formulas. The language is pretty similar to the formulas that you write on Excel.
Okay.
So Salesforce, so the nice thing is when you hit a brick wall in low code, click and I still haven't got the correct term for this, but It's the low code, click through, whatever, basically designing an application without coding. And when you do that, and when you hit a brick wall, that's where this Apex programming language comes into play, right? You can use that to extend anything that you can't do, online. And that's why there is if you look at Salesforce developers, there are two types of developers. One we call admins, and admins are the people who do all this configuration without any code. And, the career path is, there is, admin certifications. You can get a lot done just without coding in Salesforce. And then, you got the Salesforce developers. And I will say the split is about 90-10. 90% of the people who are working on Salesforce are admins, and there's about 10% are devs.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting. And these are all the classic dreams of software all along, right? That we would just sort of drag or drop our way through that.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't solve all the problems, but the nice thing is, you're not hitting a brick wall, because there is opportunity to extend using code.
And also, it's sort of a I'm not going to say it's a single purpose, but it's a little more constrained in what you're able to do with it. I mean, Salesforce isn't a general purpose app development tool, right?
No.
So that makes it easier or it makes it more possible for you to sort of click your way and drag your way around it.
But I also see how this model came along, right? That you've got your CRM system. Like, I suspect that anybody into Salesforce bought that, SaaS product first, and then you want it to do more. So you start making extensions.
Mm.
Absolutely. And, that has been going, and still that's a huge business, right? People implement CRM solution on Salesforce, and, you have to extend it to meet your custom needs.
Sure.
And, that's a big business. But nowadays, I'm seeing more and more custom applications that is unrelated to CRM at all, right? Being developed on Salesforce. And, as I said, Salesforce will allow you to develop any web or REST applications. It just, you have to figure out, the amount of money you are going to pay Salesforce. Is it, worthwhile
right,
on the savings you get when you develop, on top of Salesforce versus, a .NET running on Azure or something like that.
Now, the CRM product is a per seat product, right? It's like a per user product. How is this thing priced?
Absolutely. Everything in Salesforce is a per seat pricing.
Okay, so even these custom apps would be per seat.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's per seat, and there are workarounds if the application is public, and you don't have a user login, they will work with you. But buying Salesforce, it's not that you can go and put your credit card in and buy Salesforce. As a developer, you can go and sign up for an unlimited number of dev Salesforce instance and work on learning Salesforce. But the minute you want to buy Salesforce, you are assigned an account executive and a sales engineer, and you're signing a 3-year contract.
It's not add to cart.
No.
Hey, hold on right there. We want to talk about ApexSharp when we come back with Jay. But first, a very special, hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is?
It's the happiest time of the year.
It certainly is. It's time to hone our code knife so that its apex is more sharp.
Oh, my goodness.
See what I did there?
That's awesome.
See what I did there? That was perhaps the worst joke of the year, I think.
I don't know. You've had a lot of competitors in that space.
Yes, I have. It's definitely a runner-up. We should write a Salesforce app to see which one comes out on the bottom.
Nice.
Anyway, before we give away the big one, we have a D-Experience subscription from Developer Express to give away. Become a UI superhero with DevExpress UI controls and libraries and deliver elegant .NET solutions that address customer needs today and leverage your existing knowledge to build next-generation touch-enabled solutions for tomorrow. Whether it's an Office-inspired application or a data-centric analytics dashboard, DevExpress Universal ships with everything you'll need to build your best without limits or compromise. Learn more and download your free 30-day trial of DevExpress Universal at devexpress.com/superhero.
Well, all right, buddy. Who's our winner?
And the winner of the D-Experience subscription today is Chris Futrell.
All right. Congratulations, Chris.
Congratulations.
The clappers for you.
Chris, now you can say that your name was read on the $5,000 giveaway show. However, you did not win the $5,000. I'm so sorry to say. Mwah, mwah, mwah. But you did get the D-Experience subscription, a big pile of awesome from DevExpress, just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you don't know what that is, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world, and every show we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December, as in right now, we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky winner of the .NET Rocks fan club, but you got to sign up to win. And now it is time to announce the winner of this year's $5,000 giveaway. Ready?
Ready.
You ready, Richard?
Oh, so ready.
You ready, Jay?
Yep.
All right, here it is. It's Michael Reyes.
Congratulations, Michael.
Michael. And Michael knows all about this. We contacted him before. He's got his loot already, and we have him on the phone right now. So let's talk to him. Michael, are you there?
I'm here.
Well, what do you think? You've won the 2017 shopping spree.
Yeah, it was fantastic to get the news. You know, as you probably are used to, most people would just, oh, is this real? Is this fake? Is this a spam bot? That definitely happened to me. So it took one or two exchanges, and I'm like, this is real.
Right. Yeah. Carl's bad humor. Yeah. Richard's incredible searing insight. Yeah, this is these guys.
I don't know that I actually said anything through the whole exchange, but yes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty fantastic. Thank you.
Well, Richard, I think Mike might be the first winner to not get a rig.
Oh my. So what's the list? What did you get?
So it's funny because I just listened to, I think it was Seth Juarez a week ago, and I had already submitted my list by the time he had said what he would get, but it was eerily similar. He's like, yeah, I would get a couple new 4K TVs and an Xbox One X to watch them on, and those are on my list. I'd done a refresh of my computer gear about a year ago, including a new standing desk. So as far as computer equipment goes, I felt like I was pretty set. So the thing I hadn't refreshed in a while was the TVs. So I think the last time I bought a TV was probably 5 or 6 years ago for the bedroom, and longer for the bottom one. So it's time to jump on the 4K bandwagon. This was the perfect time.
Totally agree.
Which ones did you get?
Yeah. So I ended up getting some Samsung, let's see, the 6300 4K series. They're the regular LED TVs. I got a 75-inch and a 55-inch.
Nice.
Yeah. So
that's a big TV, man. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I've seen them in stores, and I said, wow, 75 is really big, maybe too big. I'm upgrading a 65-inch DLP TV to that 75. So it's going to be a pretty nice step up.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Well, that's great. So what would you tell people who are sort of on the fence of whether they should join the .NET Rocks fan club or not?
Oh, it's definitely worth it. I listen to the podcast most mornings when I drive my son to school. So he's in the back seat, either reading or playing the Switch, but he gets to listen in. And he asks me, a lot of the times, like, hey, can I sign up for this fan club? And he's 9. And I told him, why do you want to sign up? He's like, I want to win a mug. And I'm like, oh. Okay.
Well, we'll make sure to send you a mug so that you can give it to him as well.
Oh, he would love that.
What's his name?
Devin. Hi, Devin. I know he's going to be listening to this. He can't wait to hear this discussion on the podcast. So,
hey, Devin, get ready because we got a new place for you to put your apple juice.
Hold off on the coffee for a little while longer, Devin.
Yes.
It's a one-way trip you'll never come back from.
Exactly.
Well, congratulations again, Mike, and we'll see you out there on the internets.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
And wow, see, that's what you get. You got to sign up for the fan club. You can actually win.
Well, that was fun.
It was fun.
And a cool set of prizes. Something a little different this time. I'm excited.
Me too. And I always love giving away stuff at the end of the year. It's better than filling up my stocking. Just saying. So before we get back to Jay, let's ask him, Jay, if you had $5,000 to spend on technology today, what would you buy?
Well, I listen to your shows twice a week, and every time this 5,000 question comes up, I keep thinking, okay, what will I buy? A lot of ideas, but what I want to buy is, for the past 20 years, every few years, I'll buy a desktop, really powerful desktop, and then also a very light laptop to carry around.
Okay.
But I think, 2018 is going to be the year where I will just buy a laptop that I'll be happy where it'll be my desktop and something to carry. So it's lightweight, but at the same time, powerful.
Yep.
What I'm zeroing in is the company called Razer. They make this really nice, powerful gaming laptops. But at the same
I know
time,
the Razer laptops.
Yep.
They're lightweight. And also the Surface Book 2. But my biggest requirement is I need to drive 3 4K monitors.
Yeah.
And
because that's normal.
Once you have, this is like, if you're a developer, more than monitors, there's nothing called less monitors.
There's no such thing as too much screen space. That is true.
Yeah. So the nice thing about the Razer laptops is they sell this external box which connects on Thunderbolt with the laptop, and you can actually go and buy a very powerful NVIDIA card and plug into this external box. And
that's the Razer Core device.
Yeah, the external EMC or what they call it.
Yeah, no, that thing's awesome. Seth Juarez uses one.
Ah, nice.
It's an external box that has one PCI slot.
Yeah,
and so you go and get a really powerful graphics card, put it that way, and the laptop is very light too. So basically, it takes care of my need for something lightweight to carry around, and at the same time, when I'm home, it can power all 3 of my 4K monitors.
You can plug your wall in.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, it's a clever idea. I think that the chassis is like $500.
Yes.
And then it depends on what you mean. If you put a GTX 1080 in it, that's another $500. If you put a Titan X in it, that's $1,100, $1,200. Like you can spend as much as you want, but it's a way to give the beefiest video card to your laptop. I think it's very clever way to go, and a good call, man. That's a neat product.
Yeah, that is definitely.
So it may be my Christmas gift for myself.
Awesome. Well, let's jump back in and talk about ApexSharp. We said in your bio that it's an open source project. It's a C# code converter. It's a two-way converter between Apex and C#. So first of all, tell us what limitations it addresses in Apex.
So developing, so as I said, traditionally people wrote code in Salesforce when they hit a brick wall, and most of the code were very small, trying to address very niche needs. But lately, what's happening is people are writing massive applications in Salesforce, and 250,000, 500,000 lines of code is, that's normal.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So if you're writing that big of a code base, you need a real tools, because, for example, as I said earlier, Salesforce doesn't have, like generics or namespaces. It's still like the old days of VB. I think VB is still case sensitive. There's no, case support, so you can have uppercase, lowercase, things like that. So the idea is, why not write all these applications you're going to write in C#, run it locally, and the app sits on top of a C# SDK. So you're actually connected to Salesforce while you're running it.
I see. Because that was my next question is if, most of this stuff runs at the Salesforce server, you're going to have some sort of proxy or service that you call through.
Absolutely. And Salesforce is very good at exposing every single function they have, or almost every single function they have, as a REST endpoint.
Nice.
So, when you're writing code and when you're querying the database in C#, you're actually connecting to your Salesforce instance. So you're working with the real data in the Salesforce instance.
Yeah.
Cool.
So if you put a breakpoint on your C# code, you're going to see the real data from Salesforce.
Yeah, that's great. So that's the challenge of developing with it. Now, once you've got something that works, you actually have to spit out Apex code that does the same thing. That's the challenge.
So you can do it two ways. Like one is like, let's say, you have something like computationally intensive, or you want to take the data and run it in, a different platform. Then you can just run the C# application on your server, okay? But use the Salesforce as the data source or database.
Sure. You could make an ASP.NET app, service, MVC service, any kind of REST service in C# and just use the API to call in.
Absolutely. So that's the underlying SDK that I first wrote. But then, the idea came along, okay, why can't we convert the C# code to Apex, just like how TypeScript works? And in fact, there are so many projects out there that converts C# to some kind of language, or JavaScript to some kind of language.
Transcoders,
right? And so I first wrote the C# to Apex transcoder because it was easy, since Microsoft has released Roslyn. The parser and everything is free and open and available. So it's very easy to write a code that can take C# to any other language, right?
Right.
And it also makes easy because Apex is a subset of C#.
Yes.
So I don't have to, implement a lot of functionality. Then the issue is, hey, there are a lot of developers in Apex who did not come from C# background, so they want to stick to Apex.
Right.
So on an enterprise, when you're working, you're going to work with a couple of C# developers and a couple of Apex developers. And Apex developers always, they want to stick to Apex, and they don't want to do anything with C#. Right. So how do you get both these teams to work together where you can make changes on your code, but then you don't have to, you're not losing your work because the Apex guy went in and wrote something more. So that's the idea behind Apex to C#. That involved writing my own parser and own grammar to read Apex code and convert to C#. So this is one of the few projects that converts both ways.
Yeah, that's great. And how is it being used?
So the primary way of using it is, if you are a C# developer and you want to develop Apex code or Salesforce, you want to work with Salesforce, and you have Visual Studio, you use it, just like any other C# development. Mm-hmm. You write the code.
What kinds of applications are being developed with it? I guess who's using it?
You can use it. Most people start because the conversion part only came out about a few months ago. Most of the work I did about for a year was the SDK. So people were using it to read data from Salesforce and pass it to another system.
Yeah.
Or write data to Salesforce, from another system.
Sort of glue code.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. But now, it's as people have started using it to write Apex code in C#, and just like their regular C# program. And when everything works, it's a real time. It converts in real time.
Right.
And it gets uploaded automatically to Salesforce. So theoretically, you don't have to know Apex to work on Salesforce.
Interesting. What do you say to folks who would do this more with Azure Logic apps or Power Apps or the Flow tooling? Like, there's good connectors into Salesforce.
Absolutely. So the usage is like, if you're just trying to use Salesforce as a data source and access the data, then you got all these connectors and you should use that. Or if you want more depth, then you can use the SDK I wrote. But the real problem I'm trying to solve is this productivity challenge, right? When it comes to developing code for Salesforce. So if you want, debugging, namespace, compile time, if you have a fast machine, your code compiles instant. And if you look at unit testing on the new Microsoft Live Unit Testing, right? It's a real-time unit testing. So if you want to take advantage of all those, then you should use C# and Visual Studio to develop your Salesforce application. And that's my argument. I mean, my elevator pitch, right?
Yeah. Okay. Good.
No, it's really interesting.
So Jay, who's using this?
I mean, so far, I have got emails from people, since very early. I started working on it full time, but been about 3 weeks now. People are experimenting with it. People are not official. Again, one of the things with Salesforce is it's being an enterprise platform.
Right.
Taking open source code and standardizing on it, it's a bit of a time-consuming process. So most of the people who are working on it are individual developers and consultants who just want to write code a lot faster.
Richard brings up this, how should we say, the love-hate relationship between Microsoft and Salesforce by saying, why would people, who are doing Azure need to do this? But I get that there are people that buy into Salesforce and that's it. That's the reason, you're on the platform, you need to integrate. But I guess Microsoft and Salesforce have pretty much always had a pretty good relationship, but there's it got a little closer recently, right?
Yeah. So the history between Microsoft and Salesforce is interesting, right? For a long time, Salesforce always wanted to integrate into Microsoft Office suite, and they still do. Right? Actually, 2015, Satya was the keynote speaker at Dreamforce.
That's the Salesforce annual conference.
Yep. So speaking of Dreamforce, this year, 170,000 people showed up.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's amazing.
In San Francisco, a city that's not designed for 170,000 people.
Now,
where do you put them?
That's what I'm going to say. Did you take over the city?
Absolutely. That's every single hotel was going at 10 times the price. Last year, actually, Salesforce took a cruise ship and parked it in the bay, so people, can stay there instead of a hotel.
That's so crazy. 175,000. Wow. I thought Ignite was big, Richard.
Well, you think even a cruise ship is maybe 7,000 people.
Yeah, that's just spillover.
Yeah. So, all you need is 20 of them.
So,
AKA all of them.
All of them.
Yeah. But it was an interesting show, and that kind of shows the why Salesforce developers should look at Salesforce, because they, in that 175,000, I would say only about 20,000 were actual geeks, like developers, right?
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
And coming back to this love-hate relationship between Microsoft and Salesforce. So 2015, Satya was the keynote speaker at Dreamforce, right? Then 2016 comes, Microsoft buys LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Which Salesforce wanted badly.
Oh.
Yeah, so competition.
Yep. And then Salesforce goes and buys this company called Quip. It's a pretty nice Excel, online, Google Word type of competitor that can easily connect to Salesforce. So you can write a document, like a Word-like document online, and have real-time data connected to Salesforce. So you can connect to Salesforce data. So as the Salesforce data get updated, the Word document or Quip document, they call it, gets updated real time.
Nice. Yeah.
And, Salesforce went along doing a deal with AWS and Google, but not with Microsoft. And Microsoft this year or last year, I think they started heavily to push into the CRM market.
Yeah.
Because remember, Dynamics was a pretty quiet product for a long time. I mean, it's more looked as an ERP application.
Right.
And now Microsoft is pushing Dynamics 365 very heavily, and it's very well integrated with the existing Microsoft suite of tools. So, Microsoft and Salesforce do compete in that CRM space.
Sure.
Right. Now, so that's the hate relationship right now, and things kind of changing where the little by little. So the one example is when Visual Studio Code, when Microsoft released Visual Studio Code, Salesforce actually wrote a Apex plugin for Visual Studio Code.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So you can edit, and still you can't compile. You have to upload the code to Salesforce to compile. But, it's a syntax highlighting. And the nice thing is, right now, when I work, I have the C# code and the Apex code all opened up in the same editor.
Yeah.
And I can compile the C# code and, and same, work on Apex also.
Nice.
Yeah. And does ApexSharp work in Visual Studio Code?
Yes. So the whole ApexSharp is, .NET Core 2.0.
Nice.
So it works on, and by the way, the interesting part is practically everyone who's doing Salesforce development is a Mac owner.
Really?
That is very telling.
So everyone, so that's also, it's a huge, Mac, dev community, Salesforce dev community is a huge Mac fan base.
Well, that's great. So, what's next? What's next for ApexSharp? Where do you see it going?
So, it's interesting, I went from doing something on the weekends to quitting my job and doing this full time, and open source development. It's one thing I'm realizing is when you do open source development and you want it to succeed, it's not just coding. Half of your time is now, like half of my time now is spent on writing documentation and, marketing it, because just putting out the code, you're not going to get 1,000 people coming and contributing to the project. Right. So nowadays, as I said, I'm spending, it's had to be run just like a business.
Sure.
And, that's where I'm spending my time. And long term, the way I see it is, I will have a, just standard open source business model, right? You have a free product and add some bells and whistles and, make it this into a Visual Studio plugin or whatever, and, sell it.
Absolutely.
But,
why not?
For now, I just want to concentrate on ApexSharp, and it's something I love doing it, and I want to keep doing it for a while.
That's cool. Great. Well, we wish you the best of luck in the future, and hey, thanks for dropping a little Salesforce on us today. That was it was a really refreshing change from what we're usually talking about.
Oh, thanks for having me, and I think every .NET developer should look at how to take advantage of Salesforce platform while still maintaining their C# skills.
For sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, Jay. Thanks for spending this hour with us. It's been great.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
You bet. And we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Pwop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a